Hi guys! My name is Alessandria Enrera. I'm a licensed physical therapist in the Philippines, registered here in Cebu.
And I'm Brandon, also a licensed physical therapist, currently based here in Cebu.
Board exam. Last 2020, we are the last board exam takers for physical therapist licensure exam. And we took it last 2020, February 2020. Brandon here was fortunate enough to pass the board exam with flying colors and got on the top 5 on the top notchers list. Yeah, so this video is all about 8 tips for you to pass the board exam. But a disclaimer, these tips are solely based on our experience, and I know that it might be different for the upcoming board exam or wherever you are in the world, or which country or which license place you're going to take the exam, right? So yeah, so this is solely based on our experience and what helped us during that time. The 8th on our list would be invest in studying early. So I think this is self-explanatory, but for us it means that if you have like a scheduled time, like for example, you have 4 months of preparation before your board exam. It's very important to study on the first month. Like when the review starts, you have to study immediately or take that advantage to start studying early.
Yeah. It's also important to invest in studying early, since you can check on which practices are good for you. You can also invest on the foundation of topics, so that in the later stages of the review, where you'll be surely more stressed, more scared of the exam, you'll be more prepared since you've already invested in the start rather than just cramming in the ends of the review season.
I mean, it's important for you to start early so you can have that study habit and you can build that study habit as you go along, rather than start the study habit on the 4th month, right? And
or
you
like
don't know,
a few months before the exam, where everyone has already gotten into a proper stride of things, and you're just trying to start yourself with just copying their pace, or
and you haven't got your established workflow or your study flow, so that's really key also.
It's really good to start early. For our 7th tip, it's to make your own notes. So yeah, it might sound basic, or it might sound like, yeah, of course, but making your own notes adds another layer to your learning. So rather than just having a visual, hearing the information from your proctors, you're adding an extra layer, which is you are writing it. You have more interaction with the information, so that the multiple instances of repetition of that specific information will help you on remembering it for the long term. So rather than just listening to like 1 + 1 = 2, if you write it down, you're adding instances where you are interacting with the information. So even writing it down is already a good chance for you to even remember it longer.
Our 6th tip is always take practice exams. So I think this is very, very important for me. I think for you, I think it really helped you a lot.
One of the most important things for me.
Yeah, one of the most important things, because other than it will help you, guide you on what are the topics that you still don't really know or you kind of lack, but it also help you during the actual board exam. Like you get to know how to answer on the actual board exam. You also get to know how the pacing goes, like since there's a time frame, you have to finish a set of exam for this specific time, so it kind of gets you a proper flow on how you're gonna take the exam.
Yeah, for me, I also think that take every chance you get. I mean, in our review center, every day we had an exam, so that sounds difficult, but in reality that really helped us, since I'm a really slow taker. I can't progress through a number if I don't have a tentative or even a sure answer for that. So it really takes time for me to finish a whole exam. So we kept on taking exams, and there was a point where I could pace myself. I could feel how long I was staying on a number. Just the act of taking an exam, repeating it again and again, gave us a chance to like rehearse for the board exam. And who wouldn't want a chance to practice something that you'll be taking only one time. So might as well take every chance you get.
Yeah, and I think it's also important for both of us while taking the board exam in terms of like practice exams, because not only will it help you in terms of taking the exam, pacing yourself, but it will also give you a lot of information in taking the exam, because sometimes these questions are kind of similar. There will be like questions that you're taking in the practice exam that are very similar to the actual like questions in the exams. So there were a lot of questions that were very very similar. Like when we took the board exam, there were a lot of questions that were just similar, and there's just kind of a little changes. So knowing those changes, you won't have to sometimes when you read the whole question, sometimes you won't really have to read it word by word, because you got used to the practice exams. You think, it's similar, so yeah, it's familiar, so I don't have to read the whole thing. So it saves you a lot of time too, and you kind of practice. So don't skip it. I know it's gonna be depressing sometimes when you always fail, and then you don't want to take the practice exam anymore because you failed a couple of times. But don't think of it that way. I mean, me and Brandon, we always failed in our daily practice exams. Well, I failed most of the time than him, but like we didn't get like very big scores, right? But he got really good scores at the like monthly something, right? Like the monthly exams.
Like the retention exams.
Yeah, retention.
Don't bother if there are exams for the week or for the month. Short-term memory is not where you win. You win with long-term memory. So just take the exam as it is. So for our fifth tip, it's don't overthink. So kind of a broad tip, but when you're taking a board exam, especially the physical therapy board exam, the coverage is so wide. You encounter so many new things. It tends to kind of overwhelm you at times, where you don't know which ones to prioritize, which ones to review on, which ones to catch up, since everybody's good in this topic, you're weak in this topic. So there will come a time that you will feel like you're overwhelmed. So a simple tip to counteract the uncertainty that you will encounter, it's just to don't overthink it. If you have something in front of you that you need to study, just study it, rather than wasting maybe 30 minutes to 1 hour of choosing between different topics. You just start on a topic and try to gain as much ground as you can on that span of time, rather than wasting it on asking yourself which would be your priority.
Yeah, and I think I remember one of my closest friends told me like she failed an exam. It was a big exam during the review, and she was like, instead she wasted so much time thinking about the exam that she failed a while ago that it took her like almost an hour to the whole night thinking about it. So I think it's really really normal for you to fail during the review season. It's just the thing is, it's just you should not think about it. Like if you fail an exam right now, just forget it and study. Take it as a learning experience. Don't think about it. Don't waste your time getting depressed about it. Just move on and just study. So don't overthink. So next tip, the fourth tip is give yourself breaks. So this is very very true to you, right? Like you always take breaks. Like it was very important for you to like take sleep. If you're very overwhelmed with a lecture, like you take a break, you watch movies or like play a game before you start another study time, right?
Also, this also applies not only on your daily routine, but also in a longer span, like maybe 2 months into the review season. Because I remember that in between the review season, we were on the December months or something. I was burned out, like nothing was going into my head. I couldn't remember anything. When I opened a notebook and tried to read something, I was like, I'm gonna vomit with all this information. So it's just you yourself know yourself. So when you feel that your brain is already tired on studying, give yourself a break. It's not gonna matter anyway, because if you're gonna try to push on studying in that state, you're not gonna retain anything. So it's better to give yourself time to rest, time to recover, so that you can go back and study stronger.
So our third tip is do not compare. So I think this is one of the most important tip I can personally give, because I see this happening to almost everyone, even myself. Especially with both of us, like I keep comparing myself to him in terms of study habit. Like I feel depressed, or I feel really bad that I'm studying so much, and then he's not, and then he still gets a bigger score. So you should not think it like that, and you should not compare your study habits to someone else, because your study habit is unique. It might be that his study habit is just much more efficient than yours, but that doesn't mean that you can't also pass the board exam, or you can pass a certain book review exam. So do not compare ever yourself as much as possible. Tendency is you will follow his study habit, or that your friend's study habit, which is wrong, because you have your own way and unique way of learning, and you should go straight to that, or you should focus on that. You should focus on yourself.
I agree. Since I have a close friend who's also with me during the review season. He's really fast in studying. He memorizes everything down to the T.
Yeah.
But when I ask him what he studied, he's already like a few laps ahead of me, a few book reviews ahead of me. So that stressed me out, really stressed me out. But when looking back right now, I realized I was wasting so much time comparing my progress with him, rather than just focusing on my own progress, rather than comparing with them. So just do your own thing. You know, if you need to spend more time on a specific topic, if you master that specific topic, you base it on yourself rather than someone else's progress.
Yeah. But I know this can also be a little helpful, because for me during the board exam, I also kind of compare and see what other of my friends are doing.
Maybe for our reference, but not like
for our
religious.
reference.
Don't follow their pace religiously. Don't follow their style, but maybe good for reference.
Yeah, like reference, like where they're at, or
what are they prioritizing?
You know, you have to study smart during exams, during all kinds of exams. So you kind of ask advice also from your friends, what they're studying on, what they're focusing on. So that's important in that aspect, but not in every aspect. So I know it's also important, especially now, since a lot of you guys are studying at home and not on a classroom. So you can't really, it's difficult for you to know what
gauge
to gauge.
other
So
people's.
yeah, it can also be helpful in that way.
So for our second tip, it's to find your motivation. So each one of us has different motivations on why we're taking the board exam, but it's also important for us to know what pushes us forward in that trying time. So I think for both of us, we have sort of the same motivation for trying to pass the board exam. First of all, we were part of the batch where there was an academic shift. So there was an interval of 3 months before we started our review season.
Yeah.
So what we did on that time was we tried to earn money working through a call center agency. We earned our own money so that we could pay for our review center, for our books, for everything, for the application from the PRC. And I think for us that was the main motivation factor, since we were the ones who earned the money, we were the ones who were trying, this was our decision. So we were giving it our all, because it would be a waste. It's only that time that we could do it. So it was our effort, it was our decision, it was our motivation.
Yeah, and also honestly, my motivation at that time was also being afraid of failing. Like I was, in my college years, I failed twice. I failed 2 subjects, so I had to repeat them again. So I was an irregular student for a time during college. I was really scared of being judged by others as well. I know it's a bad thing, but to be honest, that was what really motivated me too. You get so crazy and so overwhelmed. My motivation at that time was making sure that when I pass, I can say that Yes, I failed and I became an irregular at some point during college, but regardless of that, I passed the board exam. Our last but definitely not the least tip is doing your best.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Like, when you think about it, it's only one chance, you know?
Yeah,
One
it's
chance
only
to
one
take. It's only one hurdle. It's the last hurdle basically for you to be a professional. After 5, 6, 7 years of taking college, it's the last hurdle to get that physical therapist PTRP after your name. So it's time for you to do your best. You may have been a slacker, you may have been a achiever during your college days, but regardless of your past, this is the last chance. So this is a one-time thing. So might as well do your best, give it your all.
when I passed the board exam and thinking that I could have done better, what would my score be? Would it be higher? Or maybe I would be like a top-notcher if I just studied much harder. Yeah, so
It's hard if you live with what ifs, right?
yeah, so
What if?
my goal personally was making sure that when I took the exam and when I step out the exam center or whatever, my mindset will be, okay, I've done everything I've got. I have no regrets whatsoever. Whatever the results may be or the score that I may have, that's the best I can. So I think that's it. I think those are our
Gang.
best tips that we could have, and I think we kind of think all of these through. So I hope that you're going to, for those taking an exam, whatever exam that may be licensure exam or whatever kind of exam, I hope that you get a little bit more tips with us,
A little bit more confidence,
a little bit more confidence,
maybe a bit of direction.
yes, and maybe a kind of motivation to take.
Hopefully in the future you'll be a licensed physical therapist and you'll come back and you remember, oh, I remember that video that really helped me. So comment down below, say thank you for that video, guys.
Comment down below if you're already a licensed PTRP and you watched this before.
Kung masaya, just don't go.
Our number one is
Our
doing
number one.
our number one.
Our number one.
Sorry.
Our number one.
Sorry. It's our last
Wala
tip.
magitawag sa Jollibee.